Back again on Speed Street, another edition of Speed Street, episode 31 that we've done together. Thanks for being with us. Big show today. We got a full recap of Detroit, the last race at Belle Isle for a while, for who knows when. And we move to downtown Detroit starting next year. Look ahead to Road America. IndyCar's in full swing now. We're not on vacation just because the Indy 500's over like we talked about last week. Detroit, Road America, here we go. Joey Mulinaro alongside driver of the number 20 bit now ride in the IndyCar Series, Conor Daly. How we doing, CD?
Good, man. It's just nice to be home for 2 days, and then right back on the road to the simulator, and then up to Road America for our next event. So it's we're going on like 6 weeks in a row or something like that right now, or 5 weeks in a row at the racetrack. So I certainly can't complain. But I think I did the math. I'm like, because I'm obviously commentating on the SRX races that are coming up as well. So I think I'm gone for the next, like, until August, essentially, on every single weekend. So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun ride.
Are you nervous about being on the big old TV talking SRX?
I don't think so. No, I'm just ready to check it out and get to work. I think I love the SRX series. I think it's a lot of fun. And we've got some, cool racing to talk about. So, and Alan Bestwick is a good friend of mine, and he'll be leading the charge. And they've got quite a good team of folks there. So that'll be exciting. So if you're, we'll have another episode before I get into the old commentary booth, but stay tuned for all the first two SRX races, because I'll be up in the booth.
Yeah, it's starting Saturday, June 18th, then goes one more before Conor has duties in Mid-Ohio. So taking those 2 weeks there. I love SRX too, man. It really is. It's everything it's supposed to be. It's a lot of fun. It's entertaining as hell. And it's all you can ask for. And then throwing you up there, I mean, that makes it even better. Is there a dress code that they have for you? Do you have to have shirt and tie? Do they let you be lenient there?
You know what? That's actually a great question. I'm going to have to figure that out. I only own really one suit. So if I'm the guy that shows up every race broadcast with the same suit, you can't do it. So I'm going to have to contact some people and see what we can do. I'm sure they won't let me go up there in a t-shirt and jorts and a backwards hat, but maybe it's time. The first time CBS primetime Saturday night broadcast on a t-shirt and jorts, who knows?
It'd be only fitting that it'd be you, brother. But yeah, maybe a little Men's Warehouse, little express sponsor or something. Get going here so you can help Conor out. I'm the same though. I only have one, maybe two suits, and my parents and my wife get on me all the time talking about how I'm a grown man with only one suit. I'm like, how often do we do it? We don't work in jobs where we need to do that.
It's true, man. I mean, you might go to one wedding a year where you bust it out. You might go. Like we have the Indy 500 banquet, the awards banquet. That's all we dress up for that. And that's pretty much it. So I don't have a massive selection, but I don't know what I'm going to do. So we'll see. I've got to contact some people, maybe, get like a different colored shirt to wear under the jacket or something like that. And maybe camouflage the suit that I've got. Who knows?
Yeah, if you use a different tie and a different shirt, you can get away with the same suit for literally the entire year. So Probably the more efficient, more affordable way. All right, so we did have Detroit this last weekend. Again, like I said, we'll get into Road America. That's coming up. A lot of people love that track, that course. It's a fun weekend every year. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Speed Street Pod. Do that. That continues to grow. Continue to add people to the street, to the neighborhood, and be sure to subscribe. Leave us a rating, a review. We got a good amount of ratings and reviews over our first week at Dirty Mo, so really appreciate those. But keep those going so we can keep this thing growing here. Before we get to Detroit, Conor, though, we were talking off the recording before we got going. You said that you learned some kind of funny, maybe somewhat unfortunate news about the Indy 500 payout system over the weekend.
Well, it's not necessarily unfortunate, but it is quite funny. Everyone, we saw that there was an updated purse, right? We were like, oh, hey, thank you, Roger. We appreciate that. And it was, I made a joke about it in my speech about how Alex Rossi bought tacos from Taco Bell because, we all just had a little bit of an extra boost in prize money. And normally the way it works, like to give people a background, like in the era that I've been in IndyCar, if you finish in the top 22 in points at the end of the year, so that car, whatever car finishes in the top 22, the team gets $1 million. So it's a lot of money, right? And that's kind of that the payments of that are spread out like through the year. And so a lot of the times, like ever since I've been in the Indy 500, if you're a full-time entrant, the prize money is like at least $300,000, and then whatever else you acquire is also added on there. But that $300K was the leader circle money. It's called leader circle. So we kind of always knew that, like, oh wow, like we got this 300. Like people are like, oh wow, you made so much money. It's like, well, no, that goes directly to the team, and like we've kind of all been used to that. And so, this year, obviously the winner got like 3.1 million. It was wild. And like, I looked at my prize money and said, oh wow, like 527,000 or whatever. I was like, oh my gosh, like in historic pasts, that would have meant that, okay, 300 of that goes to my team, understandable. And then the rest of it, which is obviously still a large amount, like in my contract is split in half. And so then, even still half of 215K or whatever is like wonderful. I was like, oh, that's great. The first thing that happened when I got to the track in Detroit, and I respect my boss, Ed Carpenter, for doing this. He's like, hey man, so I know we looked at that prize money and I told you like, we thought it was like 300 was leader circle. So that was wrong. And I just wanted to make sure you didn't like buy anything yet, because it's actually 460,000 that goes to the team instead of 300. And I was like, what? So instead of the 527,000 or whatever, a massive amount of that went, to the team as part of this leader circle thing, because obviously we're in the top 22 in points. Like that's great. We were last year, and the team, deserves that money. That's what happens. But they just basically, it's just such a shame that they announced that purse, because it's so inaccurate for the drivers. Like I wish they would just not announce the purse, because like I even had people messaging me on Instagram like, oh, can't wait for you to tip really well now. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like you guys know my finances. Like, first of all, I'm a big tip guy. I love tipping people. I respect the people that are out here working, giving us, giving us great services. Right. Mm-hmm. But I was like, what ends up, like, there's a lot of money that goes away. Like, now look, did I still make money? Yeah, absolutely. But it was like essentially what I had in my head. It was like cut into a quarter of what I thought it was. So very interesting. And it's sad that we have to announce the purse like that, because especially like it gets us drivers like excited about like, hey, we put in a lot of work. Like that was my best finish at the 500. I was like, hey, maybe we get a little bonus here. Maybe I can, buy another suit for my commentating. I don't know, but it was, I just want to let people know that don't claim to know others' finances without actually knowing, because I found out and it was quite sad. And it is what it is. So turns out that we got a little smoke and mirrors there at the banquet, but at least now we know. And you know what? It's the leader circle is a great thing to help the teams, and I respect that. I just wish I wish we would have been told that going into the evening.
Man, times just keep getting, gas prices going through the roof, purses getting cut in half. I mean, geez, dude, it just keeps on piling on for you, man. Now, can you negotiate with Ed to maybe, hey, I understand what we got to do here, but could the corporate card come through for a suit or something here, Uncle Ed?
You know what? No, I'm all good. I'm happy as can be. It's not necessarily a complaint. I'm obviously very happy with what we got going on. But when you think you're going to make six figures and then you don't, that's kind of upsetting. You know what I mean? It's like, I feel like I just want to let the people know, hey, if you're expecting me to go and like buy a boat, I am not. Yeah. It's definitely not. I will not be your boat guy for the summer, because I'm just trying to get a suit now.
So to the folks at the Oakmont, our friends at the Oakmont, various places around Mass Ave and downtown Indy, no, don't come ravaging for Conor because of the purse that you saw on Twitter. You got the story. You know the situation now. be kind, because he's going to be kind to you. But exactly. I apologize, man. I mean, I'm glad that you're still okay with it. But yeah, I mean, when you think you're getting a bottle of Don Perignon, and you get Kamchatka, that's always a little bit of a problem there. Those aren't even the same things, but you get what I'm going with.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just want to make sure that this podcast is about honesty, and we're trying to bring people into the racing game. This is the stuff that we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And look, no one should ever be complaining about making money, because that's what we're doing, but it is quite funny. And I thought the people would enjoy that, because for many, many years, the drivers started getting up there and they're like handing us fake checks. I even have a couple of them behind me. And I think I've done 9 Indy 500s, and I think I've only ever made money doing 3 of them. So it's kind of funny to look back on that.
It's a tough business model there, man. But
it's all right.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into Detroit here, dude. You qualified 13th, barely. I mean, just by the hair of all hairs. Missed the top 6 and Group 1 qualifying there. Thought you had it. But yeah, you qualified 13th. You go +1 for the day, finish P12. You're still P12 in the standings. Your last go round at Belle Isle for a while here. What were your thoughts? What went right? What went wrong for the 20 car?
Well, honestly, it was a very interesting weekend, because the first 2 practice sessions, there were a lot of accidents, a lot of red flags. People were wadding cars up. And stuff was happening. So it really, we were really struggling to get just a lap in practice. And, Rinus was looking good and he was looking fast. And I think we definitely had some speed in the car, but I never really got deep enough into a run to get that ultimate lap time. So there was actually, we were butting heads for sure after the second practice session. And I knew that our car was not, it was not as bad as we looked on the timesheet. So I was quite confident in what we had. But it was definitely a battle when we get into qualifying, and, my previous best time, like in the practice session that morning, was like a 1:19. And then my best lap in that qualifying session was a 1:16.0. That's 3 seconds that we found in essentially 4 laps. And I was shaking after that qualifying lap. Like, sometimes you put in a lap where you're just like, I'm throwing everything sometimes you just got to put everything on the line. And I mean, we do that obviously all the time, but there are some tracks where you feel slightly more in control. And there are some tracks where you're either going to produce a lap or you're going to be in the wall. And that was kind of what was going on there. And so it was a shame to miss out on the fast 12. Obviously, the 8 thousandths of a second is crazy. But when you're battling guys like, Roman Grosjean and, Will Power and guys like that in qualifying, it's still a tough deal. So, we just missed it, but, we were on the same row as our teammate. I was 13th, Rinus was 14th. And, you had guys behind us like Alex Palou, Will Power, really, really fast guys. So it was quite an interesting mix up on the field. You had Takuma Sato on the front row. You had David Malukas throwing in big laps. I mean, he was flying. The coin cars were really, really fast in qualifying. But it sets up for a decent race, because Detroit is a really interesting lap count. Like, it's enough to where we saw in the previous year, Rinus pit lap 2 and finished on the podium. And it's kind of like it's a traditional 2-stop race, but if there's yellows and you make the 3-stop work, it's really, really good. So a lot of people started on the red tire, right? Because the red tire doesn't last as long. And it's, great for qualifying, but we know that it wears out really fast. So, the minority of the field was on the black tire, and the rest of us were on the reds to try to get rid of it. And it's just funny how it played out. In a pre-race strategy meeting, our guys said, in no historical, in no recorded history can I find a race at Detroit with no yellow flags. And sure enough, that race on Sunday, there were no yellow flags. So it was a very interesting, we had to take the gamble, because starting, 13th mid-pack-ish, a little bit further forward than that, you kind of have to, make a strategy happen. And realistically, all the guys who started on the primary tire, on the black tire, made it work and made it work well. The guys that tried to go long on the red tire on the first stint got absolutely demolished. It was a really tough deal. So there was so many things that played out that during that race as well, I had no idea where I was. I had no idea. I thought we were making progress. Like we had a good start, got around some people. I could tell Will Power was really fast early on the primary tire as well, because he was quick right out the gate. But realistically, when we pit, I was like, all right, we got some good laps here. Me and Renus were kind of making progress. And like at the end of the race, I expected my strategist, because at the whole last stint as well, like I'm trying to do qualifying laps the whole time, like just pushing harder than ever, trying to, make up time. And when he said I finished 12th, I was like, well, that's weird. Where were the other people? I never saw anyone. Like I didn't see that many cars in front of me at any point. But that's kind of how those strategies play out. Like if you pit, one whole extra time compared to anyone else, that's a 30 seconds that you're missing in the race. So it just kind of didn't play out for us. I think it, if there was a yellow really at any point, I think it does play out for us quite well. But to be as quick as we were, I think to be in striking distance of, another top 10 is strong. It's a good points day for us as well. But yeah, really interesting to see how these races, you commit to a strategy and you got to do it. And sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. And, we saw if the race had one more lap, Alex Rossi wins that race. You know what I mean? So,
and he pitted what, lap 3?
Yeah. Alex Rossi, exactly. Pit super early. And he made it work. He had a great start, pitted early and got the clear track that he needed, got around the cars that he needed. I think we pit maybe 1 or 2 laps later than him. And it was just maybe not the exact right way. And I didn't have the best out lap. So you lose like 2 or 3 seconds and that completely changes your whole race. So, that's kind of an interesting way to look at it. But Alex drove a great race. I thought he drove one of the best races of his season so far. And I mean, that's the classic Alex Rossi that we know, you know what I mean? Relentless and pretty, aggressive. And, I think he really, I was happy to see Will Power win, obviously happy to see Will Power, especially after last year, the debacle that happened to him. But I think Alex Rossi really had that race, in the bag.
Yeah, man, I had to listen to the last 20 laps on the radio and, man, he was gaining every single time. You get down to those last 8 laps, he was chopping off, half a second. I mean, it was like, it was just this race against time that even Mark Janes and Davey Hamilton were like, it's going to be super close. Does he have it? On one lap, it looks like he does have it. On another lap, it's like, he shed too much there. Like it was very exciting to listen to. I think it was another very exciting finish. I don't know how Will Power held on because he was on reds at the end, wasn't he?
Yeah, so that's the interesting part about that strategy. If you start out on blacks, you have to eliminate the red stint somewhere, whether it's in the middle of the race or the end of the race. And I think I haven't fully gone through the whole race yet, but like Will Power saving the reds for the end meant that he was trying to go super long on the blacks, both stints. And I remember coming out of the pits right in front of him and they said he was the leader. And I could tell, I was on cold tires, so he just got around me, but then I was immediately quicker than him the next like 3 laps. But they told me he was obviously going to pit. And I could tell he had really pushed those black tires like a really long stint. So they were trying to basically go as long as possible on the first 2 stints and make that red stint as short as possible. And honestly, they called it perfectly because he made him last as long as he needed to. Will Power, obviously a smart guy, champion, multi-race winner, legendary guy. So that's what happens in those scenarios. If you have to make them last a certain amount of laps, you want to make them last that many laps and no laps more because you don't need to. He made it to the checkered flag. Yep.
Yeah. No, I mean, that was the whole talk that was 71, 72 laps. Rossi is sitting atop the highest podium and Will Power's probably just up there because of how those tires were just wearing out and how it was going to play out. But it wasn't. It was 70 laps. It was the last time at Belle Isle for the foreseeable future. And are you going to miss Belle Isle? Are you excited about Detroit, downtown Detroit?
What's interesting? I think Belle Isle is such a, it was my first IndyCar podium. my first IndyCar, a second IndyCar street race, but I have a lot of memories at Detroit. It's the first IndyCar race that I led. First IndyCar race in the rain in 2015. I was driving Hinch's car when he got injured. And so I've got a lot of really good memories and a lot of almost wins at Detroit, which never count. But, I've had a lot of great times there. So I can't necessarily say it's one of my favorite tracks, but for some reason I tend to go well there. So, it's an era that's now gone. It's a very, very bumpy track that's very, very tough on the cars. We saw again, even during the race, like I know there were no yellows, but as I saw after, there were several guys getting into the wall. And I mean, it just goes to show you, even on the last lap, my teammate Renus, ending up in the tire barrier. I mean, we are pushing so hard on this track and it's so difficult to stay in, on the limit. That's what we see, guys like Graham Rahal, Kyle Kirkwood, Renus, my teammate, like guys that are just, very, very talented people. But sometimes, the wall will catch you out and the track will catch you out. So definitely felt bad for Renus there. I'm very, very surprised that there were no yellows, but I think I'm also excited for the future in Detroit, because obviously a big Chevrolet track, right? Like we're a Chevy team. Chevrolet loves and supports IndyCar. And honestly, like we haven't had a new track since Nashville, right? Nashville is a new track. And I think that was really, really interesting. Detroit, not going to be a new area, but it is a new track for us. So curious to see what they come up with. I hope they really do a great job with it. And I hope it's just slightly smoother. That would be quite nice.
Right. No, for sure. Do you think, you look at Rossi, you were talking about him. Seems like this is, the classic Rossi that we're used to. P5 all the way up from 20th at the Indy 500. Starts 11th here. P2 gets a podium. Like we said, one more lap and he probably wins that race. Do we feel like this is a turning point for Rossi? Is he going to finally get past this cartoon anvil that Marshall Pruitt has coined for him? Are we coming full circle here on Road America, his last win? I know I'm throwing a lot at you here, but then also, now that the McLaren announcement is done and the Andretti announcement is done and we know the future, do you think that's really bolting out well for AR27 to just say, you know what, I'm just going to go drive and do what I do and, be the driver that I am?
Yeah, it seems to be playing out for him quite well. He's been very, very good in the last few races. Certainly the best, the best Andretti finisher in the last couple races. And he's very good at Road America. So I see him having a great weekend at Road America. This could be the Alexander Rossi win that he's been looking for in this era of the Aero screen. But also we know that the Ganassi cars are going to be fast there. We know that, it's going to be very, very close, very, very competitive. Road America, big track for power. So does Honda or Chevy have the juice? Long straights, who's going to trim out the most in the race? And I think either way, Alex is going to be a contender. So it's a very, very curious weekend, I think, overall, because Road America provides, I think, some great racing for us. But it also provides, an opportunity for a lot of mistakes too. It's a track that's so fast. It's a track that is, the pavement is very old, so it's a bit of a slippery surface. But it's also a track that, rewards balls. So you better be, ready to use them. Turn 1, turn 3, the carousel, the kink, heavy brake zone. So there's a lot of really, really, great corners there. And I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see what happens, honestly, this weekend.
Yeah, Road America. It's one that I've yet to be gone to. It's definitely on the list. Everybody that I talk to in the IndyCar community, Mid Ohio, Road America, these, Middle America camping sites, where people go for the weekend and bring their campers and have a lot of fun. Before we get to the Road America preview and look ahead, do got to talk about the TV ratings that came out just before we hopped on here to record. Not a good weekend for the TV ratings. A 0.23, I believe, 364,000 viewers.
We all knew it. It's not hard to predict. Like we know our sport. We know we know we're going head to head against NASCAR, which is potentially the worst thing ever to do. But sometimes that's how it works out. I mean, you can't always get the perfect time window. You can't always get, where you want to be. And, I got a lot of tweets about people many tweets that said, well, I watch NASCAR live, but record IndyCar. And I was like, well, why? Because NASCAR race lasted 4.5 hours. Our race was an hour 45 minutes, maybe, you know what I mean? And so, and to be honest, like, I love watching NASCAR, but realistically, unless you want to see whatever accidents or whatever happens, the last 100 laps of the NASCAR race for me, that's what I got. That's what I need. I want to watch the start and the last 100 laps because I can see what happened earlier on the highlights, whatever it is. But again, this is what, this is how people view things. Right. And I, if there is a NASCAR race on and I'm not doing IndyCar racing, I'm probably going to watch the whole thing. You know what I mean? But I find it interesting just how people view that. And you know what, to each their own, right? Like if you love NASCAR, that's awesome. If you want to watch that over IndyCar and record it, well, we still appreciate that, because if you record it, well, then you're still watching it. And that means, that means something to us. But it's definitely hard to see. A lot of us, every day I tried to get out to people. I said, please watch the race on USA. And
I was going to say, I felt like there was more of a concerted effort than I've seen in a long time throughout the field. You got guys like Colton Herta, who aren't as active on social media. There's a few guys like that I noticed that was like really pushing this. Is there kind of a memo around just the drivers? Is there kind of a message for you guys all to say, hey, let's all get behind this and really push here because we need it?
I think we all just know. We've had, great ratings this year, obviously with NBC. We're network NBC, and it's been great. But it is tough that right after the Indy 500, which was a great race, a great finish, you go straight to USA Network, which has never had an IndyCar race on it, right? So that is tough. That's something that for me is a bit of a miss. But again, I don't run this department, so I don't know. But we have so many races on Network NBC this year, which is awesome. Huge for our sport. So far this year, obviously, we've seen it. Millions of people watching, which is awesome. But, it kind of reminded us that unless you really know that there's an IndyCar race going on, people aren't going to watch it. Like it's just, and if it's hard to find at all, people aren't going to watch it. And it's a shame, because I don't know why that's going to happen, why that happens, because obviously NASCAR does well on FS1, that NASCAR does well on, Fox Network, but people know that there's NASCAR races happening. And I think for us, unless it's literally blasted into your face and you see it, you're like, oh, I like this sport that I've been following for 9 races on NBC, or 6 races, 7 races on NBC. Where am I going to find it next? I just think we're still a little bit down in that area. And I only say it because I love this sport, and I wish that, every weekend we had 10 million people watching. Right. But it's going to take a bit to get there. And it just goes to show you as well. I don't think us as drivers, we don't have enough power, because again, we clearly still had Jimmy Johnson racing with us. We clearly still had Roman Grosjean, the guys with the most social media followers on any platform, and they're putting it out there. So it's not about us putting the message out there. The people that follow us are already going to watch the race, right? It's how do you get the people that don't know that there's an IndyCar race going on, right? Like, how do you get the people that don't know that there's more than the Indy 500 to watch the next race? I had many people ask, like, well, so do you go on vacation after the Indy 500? I was like, no, we're racing the next 2 weekends. And there's still just a big gap on a lack of awareness. And again, I thought for sure that a lot of the drivers, like I tried to tweet it 3 days in a row, we're on USA, but I'm not gonna move the needle. I got 80,000 followers, I got 70,000 followers. We got you need that message to get to 20 million people, right? And then you hope that 1% of the 20 million, watch the race. So yeah. It's hard to do. I don't have the answer for it. I thought that all the drivers did a great job putting out like that it was on USA. Honestly, I was talking to some of the other guys this morning, and I said, I actually am proud of the community, like the IndyCar community, about really getting the USA Network message out there. But clearly, it's a tough battle going head to head against NASCAR. I think that's really, awareness is a whole other issue, but going head to head against NASCAR is a challenge for sure.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And, we got a review over the weekend, and I appreciate everybody who leaves a review. Please do review us, leave a rating, because we want feedback, we want to grow. But one of the things that someone said was, something to work on for this show is Joey's like lack of hardcore knowledge with racing, and it doesn't allow Conor to get in depth with explaining things. And I'm like, okay, that's fair. But I've always been upfront about that, and we've always been upfront about that.
Oh yeah.
And you don't grow the sport, you don't grow anything with the diehards who are already going to be there. The NFL is the NFL, not because of the 25 to 35-year-old men who are going to be watching Red Zone, doing fantasy football every week. The NFL is the NFL because moms and girlfriends buy a jersey, and a kid wants to get in on fantasy football, and they want to have it on because JJ Watt is super cute. The F1 is not F1 right now because of the hardcore motorhead, gearhead people who love racing.
Exactly.
That's not the point. This is not the point. This is not one of the main points of this show. One of the main points of this show and what we're trying to do and what's important for IndyCar, I think, is not the diehards. It's the casuals. That's what separates the big time sports and series and entertainment at all from being uber popular on Netflix F1 to, trying to get the awareness out there.
Yeah. And you bring up an interesting point. F1 didn't gain 1 million hardcore race fans. They gained a bunch of people that watch Netflix. Like there's no other way around it. Like that's purely why there are a ton more people now watching F1 in America. It is not because they read engineering books and they have loved racing all their lives. These are people who literally just discovered it. And so a lot of our thing for IndyCar is how do we get to that discovery level, right? How do we get like, wow, we discovered F1, but this IndyCar stuff is really cool too. And like, they got a lot of really like wildly diverse drivers from different areas of the planet. So I think, again, I hope we get there. I think we are going to get there, obviously, or else I wouldn't be, so passionate about this. But that's an incredible point. Like it's something that we need to get to, but I do believe that, hopefully in the long run, in the next 5 years, let's say, we are able to capture some of that. Hey, we don't know much about racing, but it seems cool. And like, again, a ton of people that were at the Indy 500, right? It was their first Indy 500. And they're like, that was so cool. A friend of mine who was there with me for the race weekend, she said, going back to LA now, people like watched all of her social media stuff. They're like, wow, we all really want to go to an IndyCar race now. It's like, well, guess what? You can watch it on USA Network this weekend. But like, again, it's not at that level yet, but I think people's minds are almost there. They're like, oh, that looks cool. We see a lot of people went there. It's the largest attended sporting event in the entire world. There are no other planets that have bigger races or events. They're not even this planet. It's the biggest. So
that we know of.
And again, I don't know what happens on other planets. I haven't been there yet, but as of right now, I know that we have the planet with all the people and we're having the biggest event. So I think we're getting there, but it's just going to be interesting to see what steps do we take over the next couple of years to make sure that every race, no matter if it's on USA, no matter if it's on Peacock, no matter if it's on, I don't know. I remember when the races were on Versus back in the day. You know what I mean? Every race to have 1 million viewers minimum, right? Like we got to have 1 million people every weekend wanting to be tuned in to one of the greatest shows on wheels, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, man. And we've talked about this a lot since we started the show together. It's been a very common topic, and I think it's necessary, and I enjoy whenever we talk about it. But again, going back to the knowledge of stuff, it's like, okay, so that's like telling the 50 million people who watch, telling the 50 million people who watch the Super Bowl, hey, 48 million of you can't really be a part of this because you don't understand a cover 3 defense, right? Yeah. And it's just like that's ridiculous. That doesn't do anything. That's absolutely dumb. So that's the point on that. And so
again,
the rate
does every NFL game have 48 million viewers, like, or however many viewers they get? No, but there's a lot of millions spread out all across the year, like many millions. And you have many different games to watch in your area. But for that one game, everyone is coming together. It's like the Indy 500 for us, right? Like that's our biggest rating. That's when everyone comes together to watch it. But we got to get those away games, the other games to be just know that they're happening.
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. And that's why I've compared it to the NFL like that in a variety of ways. But one being, hey, they play 17 regular season games, 18 now, I guess. The IndyCar race is 17 races. That's all you got to commit to. 17 races for a whole year. And it happens once a week, every other week. We got to do a little bit better job on that. But a lot of comparisons there. So let's move on from that. Let's look ahead to Road America here real quick. We were talking about it earlier. What's this track like for you? What's Road America like for you? How are we feeling going into the weekend?
Well, we'll keep it somewhat quick because I definitely want to dive into the NASCAR race as well over the weekend. There was a lot of really cool stuff to talk about there, but we'll get into that after Road America. Road America is a great track. Also have a new teammate this weekend, Simona Di Silvestro. Her and the Beretta Autosport team are going to be with us as like an extension, a third car per se. And that's going to be awesome. I like Simona a lot. She's a very talented driver. I think it's going to be a battle for her because it's going to be her first, I think, road course race in an IndyCar since like 2015 or something crazy. Someone told me that. But she knows her way around a race car. I mean, she gets it. So really cool to have, all those ladies a part of the team. There's a lot of great female push there for everyone to be involved. And it'll be good. So this weekend, I expect Alex Rossi to be fast. I expect Alex Palou to be fast. I expect Scott Dixon to be fast. I would like to be fast myself, but we know that we know that it's going to be a great weekend. There's always such a great turnout of people at Road America, and that's really the most exciting part. Is I think seeing the crowd there. All the road to Indy, I think, will be back in action as well there. So all the lower series also. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait. I think I don't even know. I didn't even look at what TV network we're on this weekend. But I hope it's NBC. I have no idea.
Well, while you're doing that,
someone figure it out and find out what network we're on this weekend.
Well, while you're doing that, I will say that Marshall Pruitt just released a report 2 minutes ago that Road America is set for a repave in late 2022. So it looks like this is going to be your last time around as it currently lies up there at Road America. So they're going to complete an upgrade to the Johnsonville Bridge between turns 8 and 9, safety enhancement to turns 9 and 11, encompassing over 2,000 square feet of poured concrete, terraced viewing area for golf carts atop turn 13, and improved drainage areas and the paving of pit lane. That's according to the, let's see here.
That's great because honestly, a lot of that pavement might be older than me. I think Joseph Newgarden and I battled across the finish line in Skip Barber when we were in 2008 for a win there, and it was the same pavement.
Well, 14 years later there, bro, and you're good to go. So they're going to be doing it at the end. That's on NBC, thanks to producer Ben Walton there, and I just pulled up on the IndyCar
it is
app.
NBC. Yep. Beautiful.
NBC,
back, baby.
The Big Bird.
The Big Bird.
The Big Bird is going to be caulking on Sunday, 12:30. So a high noon, 12:30 start. Get your barbecue, get your lunches, do all that, and let's get it fired up there at Road America. Yeah, I really am jealous. I got to go to Belmont Stakes this weekend in New York to watch some ponies, but next year I have to make it to Road America. I've heard nothing but fantastic things.
We get it. You're a big horse racing guy, but someday you gotta make it to Road America. Joey. For those new listeners, Joey is a horse owner. He's a big horse racing guy. We love all types of motorsport, including sports of horse racing.
Equestrian, that's right.
Yeah,
I believe that's
we're big equestrians.
Getting a nod from Ben, so that's good. I'll take it. All right, Road America coming up, 12:30 Sunday, NBC, Big Bird, be there. Real quick on the NASCAR Gateway, our boy Chase Briscoe led to green for the first time in his Cup Series career. That was fantastic to see. Didn't work out for him later how we would have hoped, but a nice accomplishment for 1-4 there.
Yeah, I mean, great to see for sure. And I think there was actually a lot of NASCAR action this weekend. That was wild. We had the truck race that was very, very interesting. Hated to see Carson Hocevar in the accident that he was in. Carson, it was obviously my teammate when I did my truck race, my last truck race in Vegas. And I think he is one of the brightest young stars in the NASCAR world right now. I think he is super talented. And it was, the internet never misses anything. And there was a wild video of that I saw after he got hit, and there was the poor guy sounded in a wild amount of pain, and he's clearly, hurt. And the safety team, I was like, can we please get to this guy? Can we please get to this guy? We're used to the IndyCar safety team getting there right away, no matter how many cars are in it. Obviously in NASCAR, there can be a lot of cars in wrecks, and I get that. But yeah, hated to see, a friend and it sounded like he's in a lot of pain, but hopefully he's all right. And then the NASCAR Xfinity at Portland was a wild scene. I don't know if you had a chance to watch that, Joey, but it was in the rain. We had AJ Allmendinger out there who crashed before the start of the race. He crashed in the middle of the race. He was off the track and still won the race. I texted AJ after the race and I said, there's another one for the old buddy there. And his interviews afterwards are so funny and so honest, because he'll be complete. He's like, oh yeah, I was terrible. And I was like, that's a racing driver. That's a true racing driver right there. But a great race, honestly. I thought, to see the racing that did go on, apart from everyone hitting each other in turn one, was great. I would like to see less 30-car accidents in turn one at Portland. I think there was a little bit. Obviously, it was wet and there were mixed conditions, but every time I watched the restart, it felt like 30 people were crashing. So I wish they could have, maybe cleaned that up a little bit. But it was a couple great battles for AJ, and a lot of guys basically got to the end of that race with no pieces left on their race cars, which is, that's very NASCAR and very NASCAR road racing.
We saw a couple big birds, right? Was that Allmendinger? Who was that?
Oh, no, that was Sheldon Creed, I believe. He was flipping some birds.
Nice.
That was, you know what? I respect that. If you got to throw out the birds, you know what? Just make sure it's worth it.
You gotta, yeah. I mean, he was it looked like he was risking a lot to be out there flipping the double birds. So good on you, man. I mean,
hey, it's what makes NASCAR so great. That's the emotion we want to see. If someone got wrecked in IndyCar over the weekend, I would want to see them jumping out and throwing fists or throwing stuff, throwing birds. That's emotion. We love what we do. We want to win the race. And if someone wrecks you, they should hear about it.
Hey, IndyCar's on the Big Bird. We talked about it this weekend again. Let's see some birds, huh? Yeah. A couple birds.
We obviously respect the crowd and everything like that. But you know what? If you're mad, sometimes you gotta let the people know.
All right. Anything else from Gateway? I was watching IndyCar and I had family in town, so I was not on the screen for a lot of the NASCAR this week.
Well, there's a lot, and obviously I was participating in our own motor race, so I did not get to see most of it, but I watched a lot of it. And what I find interesting about the Cup Series at Gateway is, having raced there myself and having not actually seen Cup cars race there, I was very curious to see how they would race. And honestly, I think they raced really well. I enjoyed the last stint watching Kyle Busch run one lane higher than Joey Logano. And he was on the edge and Joey was trying to find clean air. And that track really, it's not that wide for us. In IndyCar, we're kind of locked down to the bottom. And, we're also full throttle through 3 and 4 in qualifying. And those guys are lifting, downshifting a lot. But we're braking for turn one, but we're not necessarily doing a ton of, 2 and 3 wide racing. So it looks like the track actually suited them really well. and it's by far one of my favorite oval tracks. But the whole Denny Hamlin thing and Ross Chastain, I mean, there was a lot to go on there, Joey, and I don't know if you saw the whole thing, but it's one thing that I can promise you would never happen in an IndyCar race, because first of all, our races aren't 4 hours, and also it just wouldn't ever happen that way. But I mean, Ross Chastain is obviously very talented, and I think I was going to get into this for one reason, because I think a guy like that, because he has now won races and because he is a competitor every weekend, he can almost get away with that a little bit better, because I think people respect drivers who have won. Obviously, if you're going out
credibility,
there, yeah, exactly. If you're going out there and just wrecking people, but you're not a winner, well, then you're just a loser. Like then it's just like, all right, why are you even, like, what's going on? Good point. Because like I always feel like in my scenario in IndyCar, right? If someone forces me off the track, or if someone, wrecks me, and like, you would never get out of the car and say, oh, well, Scott Dixon's an idiot, because first of all, he's not going to wreck you. And second of all, he's not an idiot because he's got 6 championships. Right. So like, and I have no race wins in IndyCar yet. Right. So like, I always find myself, I would never, ever want to say anything about anyone who I might've tangled with that is already a proven success story. And like, I haven't won a race yet. You know what I mean? Like, I've been on the podium, we've done all that stuff, but like, I kind of know where I should and shouldn't say anything. And, what's interesting in NASCAR is I think that Ross can, and I love I do think Ross at times goes over the top. I do. And I like Ross a lot. And I like Justin Martin a lot. Well, because I mean, he's winning races. So again, it's very hard for me to say that, because like, I like Ross. I talked to Ross before he got, all the big chances that he got, and he deserved to get those chances. Chip Ganassi saw the success in him. The guy's winning everything in trucks, Xfinity Cup. But like, there's just an interesting time where I think I think it's just a different era of driver. He's going to be that guy that, is either going to win, or the car is going to end up on fire, flipping upside down across the finish line. And I think the fans like that. I think that's very cool. But to drive against that, like, that's tough, because that, like, look, there are people that are going to race you fair. I think there are people in IndyCar that that around, but there are also guys that in NASCAR, I'm sure, know, hey, look, this guy's going to race me fair. This guy's not going to race me fair. Like, we obviously know that Joey Logano, not afraid to punt people out of the way, right? Like, we saw that at several places, Darlington specifically. And it's obviously way more common in NASCAR to use a little bit of the bumper. Totally understandable. But what Denny did, and like what Chase Elliott did, like just basically trying to bother Ross the rest of the race, I like it. I mean, it's like, I feel like I would do the same thing. I would, because what was interesting about Denny, what Denny said as well, is he never hit Ross, right? Just was out there to annoy him. And like, honestly, yeah, exactly. And I kind of respect that. He didn't go out there and he didn't drive the guy into the fence. Ross still had a chance at the end. He finished strong. But it was very interesting to see. And again, it creates a story. There's emotion. There's nothing after our IndyCar race that said, oh, well, who's going to fight who? Because no one hit each other. It was a good race. We had great racing. But with that NASCAR race, there was such a huge story and so much great Twitter interaction, like Justin Marks and Denny Hamlin's Twitter interaction. Like, I really enjoy that. I'm like, boom, here we go. Emotion. And I just think NASCAR succeeds so well in that department. And do you want to see people wrecking people intentionally? Absolutely not. I don't like that in any sport, like any form of motorsport, but obviously it's more prevalent in NASCAR. And maybe that's always the way it's going to be. I don't know, but I like seeing that type of story. I like that people are out there, driving hard, maybe a little bit less driving into each other, but that's, again, it's such a great, like, strong point that NASCAR has, honestly.
Yeah, a lot of flavor, a lot of personality.
A lot of flavor.
Yeah, for sure. And was on full fledged this week. I feel like Danny's always kind of in the mix. I feel like
Yeah.
Danny's always involved in some stuff.
Well, and Denny's always going to probably be at the front too. You know what I mean? Denny is like one of the most talented guys, I think, in NASCAR. And you know, Ross is definitely a rising star of NASCAR. And I think, you know, he's going to have many more wins in front of him, as is Denny, right? So those guys, if we see a Ross versus Denny battle at the end of the year at the championship, guess who's going to be tuned in? Me. I can't wait to see it. You know what I mean? So yeah. It's a great rivalry sport. Something that I wish we had more of in IndyCar, but definitely an interesting race there. And it made me can't wait to get back to Gateway. That track does a great job selling tickets. They do an incredible job promoting, and many racetracks I think could learn from Gateway, because, well, whatever it is called, I don't think it's called Gateway anymore. It's called Worldwide Technology Raceway Center or whatever, but they could learn from them because they do such a great job.
You guys will be there when? Are you going?
Yeah, somewhere in July. August. I don't know. No, I don't even know. It's somewhere on our schedule, so hopefully we'll see everyone there.
late July, August, the flames will be going up. It'll be a great time. All right, let's get into some listener questions here. From Aaron George. How did the start of the race not get called off? 12th back looks single file up there at Belle Isle.
That is a great question, and I believe that it will come up at our drivers' meeting for sure. You know, we were not starting that far back, and I looked at the onboard video yesterday. I was full throttle, full attack from turn 8 all the way around to the green flag, and like was not lifting, like trying to catch the pack. So it's on the drivers. Like it's up. Like I think I saw even Colton had a big gap to the guys in front of him. I don't know who else had a big gap, but we can't just let that happen. It looks awful on us. And it also goes to show that we only do that to try to get heat in the tires. Really, that's the thing that happens. We're trying to warm the tires as much as possible. Every driver wants to go through a corner a little bit quicker to make sure we get a little bit of extra grip in the tires. But I was really disappointed in that start because I was full throttle, and it takes away an opportunity in turn 1. Obviously we catch the field immediately. Both Renus and I am 1 and 2. And I passed like 3 cars on the outside, into turn 3. So it all worked out fine, but yeah, definitely something that I think will be brought up in the drivers meeting. And I mean, I didn't catch the field and I started 13th. There's 26 cars in the field. So I have no idea where 26th was, but I promise you they were nowhere near where they could have been for that race. So it's, you know, it was a shame to see that.
We saw at Barber. Yeah, they called it. Just made you go back around and bunch up and start again. So you know, I thought that was interesting too. Yeah.
I think you watched the broadcast and there's actually a guy exit of turn 2 that still has the yellow flag out. So I watched the broadcast and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is holding up the yellow flag, but we're all racing. And it was like a pretty like blatant yellow flag. I didn't see it in the car, obviously, because there's a bunch of dirt and crap flying everywhere. But yeah, there was still a guy holding the yellow flag out exiting 2.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll have to see if that, you know, if we make up for that at Road America this weekend. From Hounds and Horsepower, thoughts on standing starts versus rolling starts?
I mean, I love standing starts back in the day. It was something I worked on so much when I was racing in Europe and in GP3 and GP2. It was something that I was bad at. In my first year in GP3, I was awful at the standing starts. And then in 2012 and 2013, that was my best part of the race. I would make up a lot of positions on the start, just use the clutch and use the throttle, use the brake like a launch pad. And I love it. I wish IndyCar did them. Obviously, when we did, we had a bit of a chaotic mess. And I think in racing in America, everyone kind of knows that America is rolling starts 2x2. And obviously the Indy 500, 3x3. But I still would prefer us to have standing starts. But again, that'll never happen unless, I don't know, the moon turns pink.
Kind of does something. Yeah, that's all right. All right. From Crazy Chuck 06. CD's radio comms. Whose voices are they, and do you like more or less info? He says a spotter cracks him up.
I mean, I guess like I posted a video on Instagram about the last restart of the Indy 500, and you can hear my spotter comms on there, which I think is really cool. And one of my favorite parts of the NASCAR races when I watch is the segment where they just go basically on board with a bunch of guys and you hear the spotter communications, especially at tracks like Daytona, Talladega. I think the NASCAR spotters are so talented, and a lot of those guys help us out for the Indy 500 as well. And for us, honestly, the spotter is super important. Like we only can see so much in our mirrors, and I always tell my spotters, the more communication, the better. I actually like a lot of information. Anything that they can see that I can't see helps me. And my spotter, my main spotter is Packy Wheeler. He also basically sets up all the Bell helmets. He works with Bell helmets. And so he does a great job. He's been spotting for a long time. And yeah, we had a great 2 spotters at the Indianapolis 500 this year. And I love working with those guys, and I hope to have them back again next year.
This is from Nathan.Dustman. He just asks, cheese curds?
So that's all around Road America, Joe. So when you go to Road America, you got to get.
Well, yeah, Wisconsin. Yeah, yep. The cheese. I get it. Yeah.
Look,
I love cheese curds.
Yeah, they're delicious.
Fried cheese.
Yeah. Who doesn't like fried cheese? I don't get it.
Pretty simple.
No, it's sad.
Get some Southwest Chipotle sauce or some ranch in there. I mean, you're good. It's beautiful.
Man.
How does that go for diabetes? Is that okay?
It's probably not encouraged for the diabetic community, but to each their own.
For someone who's as in shape as you are, then cheese curds are, fine.
Let's just say this: after the Detroit race, it was full green the whole way, so it was a battering on the body. I was driving home immediately, and I stopped at a Pilot truck stop. And not only did I get a foot-long Subway sandwich, but I also got a piece of pizza. So I was starving after that race, and I would have eaten anything in sight. And did I go with basically 2 meals? Yes, absolutely.
Wow, you did a Subway from a gas station. That's how hungry you are. That's all you have to say. Subway from a gas station.
I love Subway. I love Subway. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a big sandwich guy.
I love Subway too, but you have that gas station in there, it kind of muddles it up a little bit. All right, man.
Truck stops are pretty elite these days. Let's be honest. Like if you stop at a Pilot, you can get anything you want in there. I've even bought Pokemon cards in one of those places one time. So there's a wild amount of things that can come, dreams that come true at Pilot gas stations and Loves and whatever those places are.
Casey's, yeah, all those.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, man. You want to get into Ricky Troutway before we wrap up here? I know you said 1:00 you were out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I got plenty of time, but yeah, I will be going to see a chiropractor later today because my neck after the Indy GP, I hit a curb and the curb strike went directly through my anus bone and through my spine, and I don't know what it has popped in my neck, but it has been wildly painful. So I'm going to go fix my broken neck today.
Good. That's important. Good.
Yeah, it's pretty important. And I don't know if we got to any of these Twitter. There was a couple Twitter questions as well that I thought I saw that I wanted to get into. But now it's kind of gone. But
are you sure I can pull it back up here, bro? I gotcha.
So here I got one right here. This is from Ryan Reynolds, not the Ryan Reynolds that's
not the Ryan Reynolds. Yeah.
He said, with the way the championship points are so stacked up, how many drivers do you think have a legitimate shot at the championship, and who are your dark horse contenders? Joey, do you have any dark horses right now that you think are coming in hot and late in the championship?
Well, let me pull up the updated standings here. So you go.
I'll go first with it if you want.
Yeah, you go. You go tougher.
What's really interesting is that I'm 100 points out of the lead, and I'm 12th. You know what I mean? And that's a pretty tight gap. If you look at how much race wins are worth, you have two wins, or you have, a win and a top 3, you have like 2 top 5s, you close that gap pretty strongly. And I think right now I'd be very curious to see who makes a late run. Like, does Graham Rahal make a late run? Graham Rahal is a guy who literally always finishes in the top 5, but they've had a tough run. So do they start hitting their stride? Does Graham Rahal start a resurgence? But right now, Scott McLaughlin is, I think, a guy who will again start hitting his stride and perform really well.
I was about to say, he had obviously super, super strong start to the year, but I mean, You got Colton sitting there at 11th with the way that his Indy 500 just went to shit. With what was it, Long Beach, where he, had a really good opportunity there and sent it into the wall. So I feel like he just hasn't had really that good. I mean, he won the GP obviously in Indy, so he's got that win under him. But when you're sitting there at 11th, especially the way that he finished last year with the courses that are coming up and the tracks that are coming up for him, I mean, I feel like he put down on Colton Herta right there. That's kind of a no-brainer.
It's true. I mean, Colton Herta, a guy that, should have won Long Beach, a guy that probably should have had a great run in Indy. I mean, when you have a tough day at Indy, that kills your championship real quickly. So Colton's definitely going to be a guy to keep an eye out on. And I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see how the rest of the championship plays out. Road America is a great track. It's a, basic road course, but, it's going to be very, very competitive. But then we have a couple weeks off, and then we go to Mid-Ohio, and we go to, we get back to oval racing. Once we get back to oval racing, the doubleheader at Iowa, two races at Iowa could massively swing the championship. So there'll be a lot of really interesting stuff to keep up with.
I mean, Alex, we talked about him a lot this episode because of his podium finish over the weekend. He's 7th right now. Like we talked about, come full circle. Maybe Road America is his last win in 2019, and then he goes to Mid-Ohio. I think he had a top 5 finish there last year. This guy sitting at 7th there. Got to feel pretty good about that too.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
2 Andretti cars, so yeah, for sure.
That was really all I had. I just know there was a couple people, and that was about it. So we can get straight into the old random Indy 500, the Ricky Treadway random Indy 500 driver of the week.
Which, Conor, I did realize because old Billy Mack from Big Check Race Fans, he hit me up over the weekend. He's like, "Do you have all the names for the Ricky Treadway random Indy 500 driver of the week?" I was like, I mean, not off the top of my head, but we just go back and listen to the. What I'm saying this is because I mean this is episode 31, so we're coming up on a full Indy 500 field of these drivers. So if there's anybody out there, maybe I'll do it in my free time, but you want to go through the list of everybody that we've done so we could compile a graphic, maybe a t-shirt. I don't know. It would be a sick t-shirt of the first ever inaugural Ricky Treadway random Indy 500 driver field. That would be sick.
I do like that idea. I do like it a lot.
Awesome.
So we went back several years to 1953. Looked this up. And one of our favorite drivers, I started in 1949, then went to 1950, and I was just looking around because our guy Spider Webb was in all these races, and I was like, Spider Webb, I'm gonna try to get it, find another guy, but it's hard to miss his name. But there's a name that I didn't really recognize, but he finished 4th in 1953, and the interesting thing about 1953, only 8 cars finished that race. It looks like only 8 cars, at least 8 cars were on the lead lap. And there were several other cars, but many crashes, many oil leaks, all kinds of things. And it just goes to show you how wild it was back then compared to how it is now. And our guy this weekend is Freddie Agabashian. Freddie Agabashian sounds like he's not American, but he is. And his real name is Levon, apparently. Levon Fred Agabashian. And I don't know if I'm even saying that right.
That's that's a really interesting. Usually I feel like it goes the other way. The nickname is something a little bit more flashy, but this guy, he had a little bit more of a flashier first name and then just went with Fred.
Exactly. Of old Freddie Agabashian. And I mean, he's a big midget racer. Obviously, everyone who was racing back then, though, they all raced midgets. Like everyone was a dirt racer, really good drivers, and qualified for his first Indy 500 in 1947, and he finished 9th in his first Indy 500. So this guy, he had a good couple runs. He made the next 11 Indy 500, so many Indy 500s, and I've not heard of this. I've not heard this name before. So 50s Indy 500 history is apparently not your
forte.
Really,
it's all right.
Yes, it's not my forte.
I think there's probably about 4 people on the planet that's their forte, so that's okay. Yeah. You
know what's funny is with his best finish in the Indy 500 was 4th. So he's got me covered. 1953. This is obviously the year. the extremely hot race day where he was relieved by Paul Russo. So he finished fourth, but didn't do the whole race. I don't know. Very interesting.
Well, it doesn't count.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So Paul Russo was actually a guy that I was looking at as the random Indy 500 driver of the week because he sounds like a gangster. Paul Russo kind of sounds.
Hey, Paul Russo.
Oh wait, no. You know what's funny is I see Paul Russo was in this same race, but Paul Russo finished 25th and was out of the race at lap 89. So maybe Freddie's still credited with the 4th place finish, even though Paul Russo might have finished the race. That's wild.
Dang. Can you imagine?
Times were different back then.
You hop out. Renus was already out this year. Then Renus finishes, you're dehydrated or something. And he just hops in, pit stop, grabs a helmet and goes. Yeah, he finished 6th the next year. So he's right there with you in 1954. But I did see that he was a broadcaster. And after his retirement, he did color commentary for the IMS radio network from 1959 to 1965. And then again from 1973 to 1977.
Someone is gonna tweet at me and say, "How do you not know who Freddie Agabashi is?" I guarantee someone's gonna say that. And again, this is for everyone, but it's also for me. I'm trying to learn myself. If I should know him, then you know what? I do now.
Yeah, and then come next April and May, everybody who listens to the show is going to just be able to have super great small talk stories to be able to bring up about 1950s Indy 500 drivers around the track. And everybody's going to be like, wow, this person really is cool. They really know their stuff. And it's going to be because of this show. So
exactly,
it's a learning lesson for everybody. Right?
Exactly.
Good deal. All right. Conor, will you go get your neck right, bro? Because we need you to be good to go for Road America this weekend and beyond. This has been Speed Street. Again, be sure to follow us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, @Speed Street Pod. Be sure to subscribe to us, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Follow us on there. Leave us a rating. Leave us a review. Helps pump those numbers to get the motorsport community continue to follow us. The video episodes will be up on my YouTube channel. We got a full Speed Street playlist pod, the full video episode. You can watch along and listen along with me and Conor and Ben. We appreciate you. Anything left for you, CD?
That's it. Just remember, we're back on the old Big Bird this weekend, NBC, IndyCar Racing, and be a friend, tell a friend.
Be a friend, tell a friend. We're on Big Birds, flipping Big Birds. It's going to be a great time, baby. We'll talk to you next time on Speed Street.